Right, so today we're diving into FCS football recruiting,
Yeah,
looking at the top programs, battling it out for some of that fresh new talent.
absolutely.
And, for those who might not be as familiar with FCS football,
Right.
it's a division in college football that's really known for intense competition.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of hidden gems come out of this division.
Yeah, for sure.
And today our main source is going to be an article from Hero Sports,
Right.
which details the top recruiting classes.
Yeah, they do a great job with this stuff.
So, they actually rank these recruiting classes in two different ways.
Interesting.
One for high school recruits only,
Okay.
and another for high school recruits plus transfers.
Yeah, so both.
So what's the significance of that?
Well, I think it really just kind of shows how important the transfer portal has become.
Oh, for sure.
Because before it was all about just attracting those high school stars.
Right.
Now you've got to also think about how to utilize that transfer portal to build your roster.
Yeah. It's a whole new ballgame.
It really is.
So who came out on top in this recruiting battle?
Well, in both categories, actually, the top two spots were held by Sacramento State and North Dakota State.
Wow. Back to back.
Yeah.
North Dakota State consistently dominates the FCS.
Mm-hmm.
So them being at the top isn't a surprise.
Right.
But Sacramento State snagging that top spot?
Oh, yeah.
That's something to watch.
They're building something special over there, for sure.
It seems like it.
Yeah. And their recruiting success is definitely a sign of that.
For sure.
What's really fascinating, though, is that North Dakota State's dominance
Okay.
isn't just about attracting new talent.
Mm-hmm.
It's also about their exceptional player retention.
Oh, wow.
Like, they've managed to keep the core of their championship-winning team together.
Wow.
And that's huge for their continued success.
Yeah. It's one thing to bring in a stellar recruiting class,
Right.
but it's another to keep those players engaged and, committed to the program.
Right.
North Dakota State has clearly cracked the code.
They have. And it's not even just about the wins and losses,
Yeah.
They've created this culture where players feel valued and invested in the team's success.
Right.
That type of loyalty is invaluable in college football today.
And speaking of loyalty and how coaching changes can affect it,
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about South Dakota State for a second.
Okay.
They were initially projected for a top 5 class,
Wow.
but they ended up losing a few key recruits to Washington State
Oh.
after their coach moved there.
Ouch. Yeah, that's got to sting.
That's rough.
It really shows how much of an impact a coaching change can have on recruiting,
Oh, for sure.
especially in today's world.
Yeah.
Recruits, they build these relationships with the coaches who recruit them.
Right.
So when that coach leaves, it disrupts that trust,
Right.
and it can lead to players, reconsidering where they're going.
Yeah, so it's almost like a domino effect.
Yes,
Coaching change leads to a loss of recruits, which then affects the team's overall performance.
Exactly, and that's why program stability is so important,
Right.
especially for those teams that are trying to become, consistent contenders.
Mhm.
It's not just about bringing in the new talent.
Right.
It's about making that environment where people want to stay and contribute long term.
Which brings us right back to North Dakota State.
Full circle.
Yeah. They seem to have mastered this art of, building a dynasty
Uh-huh.
through consistent recruiting and player retention.
Yeah.
But does recruiting success always guarantee wins on the field?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
While a strong recruiting class can definitely set you up for success,
Mm-hmm.
it's not the only thing that matters.
Right.
You've got coaching, player development, team chemistry, even luck.
Right.
All of that plays a role.
It's like baking a cake.
Yeah.
You need all the right ingredients
Mm-hmm.
in the right amounts, plus the right oven temperature
Right.
and the right baking time
Exactly.
to get that perfect result.
And North Dakota State,
Yeah.
they've shown that they can attract the top talent,
Mm-hmm.
but they can also develop that talent and create a winning culture.
So they found the recipe.
They have.
Yeah. And it looks like Sacramento State might be on a similar path
Yeah,
given their recruiting success.
for sure.
Makes you wonder, could they be the next dynasty?
That's the question.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait and see.
We'll see.
But one thing's for certain.
What's up?
Both these programs have figured out that, building a winning program goes beyond just snagging those high-ranked recruits. It's about building an environment that fosters growth loyalty and that shared pursuit of excellence.
So we talked about the top 2 powerhouses,
Right.
but what about the rest of the top 5?
Okay.
Who else is making waves in the FCS recruiting scene?
Well, according to Hero Sports, Montana State, Incarnate Word, and William and Mary round out that top 5
Wow.
in both categories.
Interesting.
It's a real mix of established programs and some up-and-comers.
Yeah.
Montana State especially has been on the rise, and their recruiting is a reflection of that.
Yeah, it's exciting to see that mix, familiar faces and these new contenders.
Yeah.
All, competing for the top spots.
Absolutely.
It just goes to show how dynamic and competitive the FCS is.
It really does. And with the transfer portal, adding that whole other layer of complexity.
It does.
It's getting tougher and tougher to predict which programs will rise to the top.
Yeah, that unpredictability is what keeps it interesting, though.
That's true.
But before we really jump into the transfer portal, let's take a quick step back and talk about the importance of retention.
Absolutely. One of the most overlooked but crucial parts of building a program.
Yeah, it's not just about bringing in those shiny new recruits.
Right.
It's about keeping your core players engaged and committed.
Yeah, and that's where things get really interesting when you look at North Dakota State.
Okay.
Because not only have they consistently recruited top talent, but they've also managed to keep a lot of their key players from their championship team last year.
Wow.
Which is incredible. Yeah. It's like they've built this culture where guys want to stay and be a part of something special.
Right.
And that kind of, that continuity is such a huge advantage, especially in a sport where chemistry and experience, really matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like building a house.
Okay.
You can have the best blueprints, the most expensive materials.
Right.
But if the foundation's weak, the whole thing's going to crumble.
Exactly.
And in this case, North Dakota State's foundation is that core group of players.
Yeah.
They've built this strong base, and now they're just adding these new layers with each recruiting class.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks.
And, it highlights how important it is to think long-term when you're building a program. It's not just about winning that recruiting battle one year.
Yeah.
It's about creating a system that's sustainable. That helps you both bring in talent and keep it.
So for North Dakota State, it's not about just having the shiniest new toys.
Right.
It's about having a team that's cohesive and battle-tested.
Exactly.
It's that continuity and experience that makes a difference in those big games.
Yeah, absolutely. And, while other programs might be chasing those flashy recruits, North Dakota State's quietly building a dynasty by focusing on the fundamentals.
Yeah.
Getting that talent, developing their skills, and creating an environment where players thrive and want to stay.
That's a really good point. It's like the tortoise and the hare.
Yeah.
Some programs might be sprinting ahead with those big-name recruits.
Yeah.
But North Dakota State, they're steadily moving forward, building something sustainable.
Exactly. And their track record shows it.
For sure.
They've consistently been at the top of the FCS, and their ability to keep those key players is a big part of that.
Yeah, it's a strategy that other programs could definitely learn from. It does seem like we're seeing a shift in the FCS.
Yeah.
With programs like Sacramento State and Montana State embracing that long-term building approach.
Yeah, you can't just rely on star power anymore. You have to build a culture of excellence.
Yeah, attract and retain that top talent.
And that brings us back to the elephant in the room.
Okay.
The transfer portal.
Oh, yeah.
It's been a game changer for college football as a whole.
Right.
And its impact on the FCS is becoming more and more obvious.
Yeah, it's really fascinating how it's added this whole new dimension to recruiting.
For sure.
It's not just about high school talent anymore.
Right.
It's about strategizing and adapting to this constantly changing landscape.
You got to be on your toes.
For sure.
Programs have to think about how to recruit those high school players, but also how to work that transfer portal, which can be a little unpredictable.
Right. It's like playing chess. You've got to be thinking several moves ahead, anticipating how your opponents are going to react.
And with the transfer portal,
Yeah.
it's about finding those players that not only fill a need, but also fit the team culture.
Right.
And contribute to that sense of continuity.
So it's not just about plugging holes in the roster.
No.
It's about finding the right pieces.
Yeah. You want that perfect puzzle piece.
Yeah. And it seems like programs are realizing
Yeah.
that the portal isn't a quick fix.
No.
It's a tool that you have to use strategically.
It really is. And it's going to be interesting to see how programs continue to adapt and evolve their recruiting in this new world of college football.
Yeah. One thing that strikes me about the portal?
What's that?
It seems like it's leveling the playing field a bit.
Interesting.
Smaller programs that maybe didn't have the resources or the national recognition to get those top high school players.
Yeah.
they can now get some experienced players who are looking for a fresh start or a better opportunity.
That's a great point, and it's something we're seeing more and more of. Programs like Incarnate Word and William and Mary, they've definitely benefited from the portals, adding those key pieces they might not have gotten otherwise.
It's almost like a second chance.
Yeah.
For both the players and the programs.
Yeah.
Players who might have been overlooked or underutilized.
Right.
They can find a place where they can thrive.
Exactly.
And programs can fill those gaps with experienced talent.
It's a win-win.
Yeah, sure.
And it adds another layer of, excitement to the FCS.
It does.
As we watch these programs change and adapt to this new landscape.
Yeah, it really is a whole new ballgame.
It is.
But as we wrap up this discussion,
there's
one question that keeps coming back to me.
Okay, what's that?
With the transfer portal becoming so important.
Yeah.
How's it going to affect the balance of power in the FCS?
That's the question, isn't it?
It is.
Will it even things out?
Yeah.
With programs like Central Arkansas, Youngstown State, Austin Peay, Eastern Kentucky, breaking into that top tier.
Right.
Or will those traditional powerhouses like North Dakota State and Sacramento State continue to dominate?
It's a question that'll probably take a few years to answer.
It will.
And I'm really excited to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting ride.
Yeah, it really is a fascinating time to follow FCS football.
It is.
The landscape is always changing. And it's hard to say who's going to be the next big program.
It really is.
What we do know, though, is that relying only on high school recruiting just isn't enough anymore.
Nope.
Programs have to be adaptable.
Right.
They have to be strategic, and they have to be willing to use the transfer portal while also, making sure to keep their current players.
Absolutely.
We saw that with North Dakota State.
Yeah.
Their ability to keep those players, to build that foundation, and then add to it strategically.
It's impressive.
That's how you build a dynasty.
It really is.
It shows how strong their coaching staff is, how good their program culture is.
For sure.
They've made an environment where players feel valued and want to stay.
That's huge.
It's not just about winning games.
Yeah.
It's about building something special.
Yeah, something that players want to be a part of.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into FCS recruiting, what's the one thing our listeners should take away from this?
Well, I think the most important thing to remember is that things are changing.
Right.
The transfer portal has completely changed the way recruiting works.
And it's created both challenges and opportunities for these programs.
It's a time of uncertainty, but also a time of excitement.
For sure.
We're seeing new contenders emerge. Those traditional powerhouses are adapting, right?
And what it even means to be successful is changing.
Exactly. And for anyone paying attention, there are so many interesting things happening in the FCS.
Absolutely.
Who's going to figure out this transfer portal? Which programs are going to focus on keeping their players and build dynasties that way?
Yeah.
And will we see the balance of power shift as everything changes?
These are questions we'll have to wait to see answered.
We will.
And that's what makes following FCS football so exciting.
It really does.
It's a sport where anything can happen, and those underdogs often have a chance to shock everyone.
They do.
So to all our listeners out there, stay tuned.
Pay attention to how recruiting is changing.
And don't be afraid to think differently about which programs are going to make it big.
The future of FCS football is happening now.
Yeah.
And it's a story you don't want to miss.
What a great way to put it.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us today on this deep dive into the world of FCS recruiting.
Of course.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep that love for the game alive.